This episode of ChatEDU is sponsored by the National Center for Next Generation Manufacturing. Liz, what do they got going on?
The National Center for Next Generation Manufacturing, funded by the National Science Foundation, is a proud partner of the National Applied Artificial Intelligence Consortium.
That's a lot of national.
Yes. They invite educators to attend the NAAIC AI Summit, Building the AI Workforce Through Community Colleges, February 19th through 20th, 2026 at Miami-Dade College in downtown Miami. Miami in February sounds great. Sponsored by Google.org, this national event focuses on the role of community colleges in AI workforce development. Limited travel stipends are available for full-time community college faculty. Learn more at www.naaic.ai or nextgenmfg.org.
Fantastic. I think I just became a community college faculty person.
I think so. If they're going to send me to Miami to learn about AI, that is my jam.
I love Miami. You know where I'm going next week?
Miami.
Sure am. So actually, speaking of which, you just came back from the full-scale
symposium.
Yeah, perfect.
Down in New Orleans.
Had a good trip?
It was wonderful. I listened to this panel of students. That was the opening with Dr. Height. Man, these students, they are calling everybody out and saying, we want to learn about AI. We want school to be relevant. We want to be engaged. And we want to be ready for our futures.
It's funny, when we did our spring conference last year, I would say that the student panel was the highlight as well.
Oh, these students are so bright.
We got more of them on the podcast. All right, so you had that trip, then you're back, and then I'm going away next week, and you're having to celebrate the upcoming launch of your book, you're having a guest in.
Yes, we will be speaking with Maria Frederick, and she is going to talk all about personal interest projects and AI, the way she has used them in her classes as a library media specialist. And I'm so excited for that episode to drop. It's really great to hear from teachers on the ground.
Fantastic. Love it. Liz, how's your brain rot this morning?
So much brain rot.
What caused it? Your children or a language model?
Probably a little bit of both.
Well, there's good news out here in the world of brain rot. And real quickly, I don't think anyone doesn't know what it is, but so what does it mean when we say brain rot in the context of artificial intelligence, especially in education?
Yeah, it's when we start to get lazy and kind of not do some of the thinking and just letting AI do the work for us and, not using our brains.
I wonder if the term existed. I don't remember the term. Like when we all went to use Google Maps and stopped using the big paper maps in our cars. I don't know if we said like, oh, we're having brain rot, but definitely is the term.
Yes.
The term of art. So I was very excited when I saw this study that says that apparently the language models can get brain rot too. So when we rely on low quality and lots of AI content, sometimes, as you said, the cognitive offloading, but apparently, a ChatGPT could get brain rot. What's going on there?
So this study called LLMs Can Get Brain Rot by Jing et al. From Texas A&M, UT Austin, Purdue University. It introduces the LLM brain rot hypothesis. So that continual exposure to junk web data, so things from like popular low-quality engagement-driven content from, say, like Twitter and X, probably like Reddit, other social media, causes persistent cognitive decline in large language models. In controlled experiments with 4 different LLMs, exposure to junk data led to significant declines in reasoning, memory, safety, and personality alignment, including increased psychopathy and narcissism. Not good.
Not good. I was especially and I probed into the study a little bit, the reasoning memory part I thought was really interesting because one of the things that we see all the time, right? There's a lot of talk right now. And you and I, we don't talk like, macro or microeconomics. So this whole is there an AI bubble? And, is it justified that Amazon is letting 14,000, maybe 30,000 people go in the spirit of AI or because of AI? Just day in and day out on the ground, what I notice is that Gemini, ChatGPT, Grok, Claude do not follow instructions. These platforms cannot consistently follow instructions. There was a really cool study a new benchmark that OpenAI came up with called GDP Val, which looks at the economic value of when a person does something and when an AI does something. And time again, it just can't follow instructions. So if the brain rot hypothesis carries forward, it's going to get messy.
Yeah, so the AI is just going to keep getting worse?
Well, I think, the challenge, and a lot of people will ask us this, is, if they run out of stuff to train on, what do they train on? And the idea is that there will be synthetic data. In fact, actually, this came up in a story we're going to cover this week, so that the synthetic data will hopefully be of higher quality. That's the hook, is that if the stuff is low quality, that over time we'll see brain rot. But in the meantime, your brain seems just fine to me. So I'm Matt Mervis.
And I'm Liz Rade.
And this is ChatEDU, the AI and education podcast.
In today's episode, from Sycophants to Socrates, we'll look at two very different findings, including one from Khan Academy, when it comes to AI and assessment. But first, we will do a robust rundown. We did miss last week, after all. And of course, we'll end with another great bite.
Brain rot?
We'll end with another great bright bite.
All right. So listen, a couple quick things we heard from listeners. Oh, the listeners have been reaching out all the time, which is really cool. So this really nice guy named Sid in Ohio pointed out that 2 episodes ago, because last episode we had Thomas Hummel on, which I just thought was fascinating.
Such a good interview.
Yeah, really grateful to Thomas and to the kind of work that they're doing. So this guy named Sid wrote in, because 2 episodes, I actually made the point that OpenAI had to make a lot of money because they were worth a whole lot of money and they aren't making enough. And I said that ChatGPT, OpenAI specifically, is worth $500 million. Now, I knew that that was not the right number. I didn't catch it, though, in the 2 edits where I listened. And apparently I'm the fact checker, which is dangerous. But I did a TikTok on it. And on the TikTok, I said $500 billion. But anyhow, Sid wrote in and said, hey, you guys are doing some great work. In a recent episode, you mentioned OpenAI is worth $500 million. That seemed very low. So I looked it up and it's actually worth $500 billion, which Sid is right. And he's very funny. He said, not sure why I chose this moment to reach out. Perhaps it's the professor in me. And he said that he loves the show, which is great. So Liz, the second email came from this guy named Nano in where?
Melbourne, Australia.
Oh, you said it right. I would have said it wrong. So Nano writes in and he says, most importantly, although you don't know it, I'm an avid listener of the ChatEDU podcast. Now, from Liz's perspective, it's helpful that you're a listener of the podcast. I would say it is most important that you're from Australia because Liz is on a lobbying campaign.
I am on a serious campaign to get us invited down under.
Nano says, I never miss an episode and it's become my Monday routine on the way to work, which is awesome. And he asked, though, about several episodes ago, we did a prompt review where you can look at all your ChatGPT history through the lens of whether or not you are using AI as a clerk, colleague, or coach.
Yes.
Sounds familiar?
Yep. I was doing way too much clerking.
Well, and again, I think
It's
different
not
times.
good or bad.
Exactly. But we do over time want to grow our muscle memory around colleague and coach prompts because those are, really allowing us not just to make something, to automate something, but to grow our skills, to amplify our impact, on and on. So I did want to remind folks where that was. It's essentially why Nano reached out. So that is at the Skills 21 prompt library, www, you like when I say that, right? www.skills21.org/prompts, PROMPTS. And there's a little header up top that says choose your category. And this is going to be the last link in that category called prompt review. I also sent back to Nano, we'd put up another page, which is www.skills21.org BTP, which stands for Beyond the Prompt. Everything is beyond with me for some reason.
Yeah.
And that's a whole bunch of meta reviews where you can look at Bloom's, you can look at Myers-Briggs, which I'm sure is some kind of intellectual property right violation, not on our part, but on ChatGPT. So you can look at your chat history through the lens of these different kind of frameworks to think about how you're interacting with AI. So just thought that might be useful.
It is.
Okay, fantastic. More from the friends. So Liz and I work a lot with this great organization in Northampton, Massachusetts called CES, the Collaborative for Educational Services, and a regular listener there, and what I hope will become a good friend of the pod is Dr. Rebecca Mazur. I hope I'm getting that right, Becca. She did a thing for DESE, which is the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education in Massachusetts, in the world of AI. And we cover lots of different state implementations and resources. This one is awesome, quite honestly. So Liz, tell us a little bit about the work that Rebecca did.
She created something to be an easy entry point for teachers and school leaders, free from those tech industry agendas and aimed at the understandings that are most important for educators. So she created a resource that's organized into 5 principles for educators with a section at the end that uses scenarios to help think about what those principles might actually look like in school. So far, people are especially liking the first principle, which is grasp the fundamentals, which gives folks kind of this quick peek under the hood of how AI works without getting too technical. But it does help people see how and why AI can hallucinate and, smuggle different biases subtly in there or overtly. The biases can be subtle or overtly into its output. So if you are in Massachusetts, you can actually get a certificate of completion if you want to go through a little course. Or if you'd like to organize some PD around the 5 principles, there's some companion materials like agendas and slides to help with that. So this is just a really cool resource, and we will drop that link into the show notes.
That's cool. I mean, so many states have put out state guidance, but they're not all created equally. We've covered a couple different ones. I think North Carolina comes to mind, where there's just been like a lot of robust resources. And I think the work that Rebecca's done and through Department of Elementary and Secondary Ed and CES has been great. And while we're mentioning them, how about a shout out to Woody Clift?
Woody Clift.
The best.
The best. He wrote a great blurb for my book.
Good stuff. All right. That's it from the listenership. Let's move on to the world.
Let's do it.
So this caught my attention. Really neat. I think as we think about and talk about lots of different ways in which AI is shining a light, speaking of another listener, the Mirror Project, to assessments, to instruction, or really reflecting back to us, one of the things that's become clear is that there's a need to mix up assessments in different ways in the classroom. And so oral interviews and oral assessments and oral presentations have become kind of like a high-level talking point, but there's some people doing some really neat, discrete work around it, especially over in
Australia.
It was an accident, I promise. So this is 5 myths about interactive oral assessments, or IOAs, and how to get started. So Liz, tell us about this.
Yeah, so this is important to understand that interactive oral assessments are gaining traction as a scalable, authentic alternative to traditional written tasks. They allow students to demonstrate applied knowledge in real-time, scenario-based conversations tailored to course outcomes. But there are these myths, but there's evidence to the contrary.
Would you have guessed, if you sort of had to guess, like what are the 5 myths about oral assessments or these interactive assessments, would you have guessed these 5?
Some of them, definitely.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
All right.
So the first one is that they are just oral exams. And so that's false. So an oral exam is not the same as an interactive oral assessment because an IO really simulates like workplace conversation, not scripted answers or presentations.
So that would be more like fact recall. This is really having to show depth of knowledge, understanding.
Exactly.
Okay, cool.
Exactly.
Myth 1. Myth 2?
Myth 2 is that they don't scale.
This would have been my guess.
Yeah. So with planning, actually, IOs save time and assess deeply. So 15 minutes of oral work can replace doing a full essay.
And they target that essay at a 3,000-word essay for what it's worth. That's
right.
Like the formula they came up with.
Yeah. And of course, if you plan correctly, you can, whether you're grading essays or having some 15-minute conversations, this is totally scalable.
Well, funny because the 4th item is about planning correctly. So what's that one?
Well, you're going to skip over number 3?
Well, you said planning. We'll go back.
Okay. So the 4th one is that they're too hard to schedule. But tools like Microsoft Booking, Zoom, all kinds of different calendar apps can streamline logistics, even for larger classes. You could probably use some AI to schedule the IOs.
Well, it just reminds me of a story that we covered 2 episodes ago where we talked about a new feature in Gmail tied to Gemini, where if you and I are trying to schedule a little interactive oral assessment, it would facilitate that process for us.
That's true.
That's great.
Yes.
Do you know what I just sat and looked at my Outlook for like a half an hour while I just like slowly loaded mail? Sometimes I get a notification in Outlook and then like the actual email doesn't appear in my inbox feed for like 10 minutes or so. It's a neat feature. All right, we jumped over 4. How about 3?
So 3 is that marking is inconsistent, but I mean, that's a myth about anything, right?
Yeah.
So, but if you use rubrics and flexible outcome-aligned prompts, it is not inconsistent.
Yeah, I like this. And then the 5th one?
Is that they disadvantage students. So when scaffolded with practice and support, IOs actually increase engagement and accessibility instead of just being able to assess with written tasks. IOs seem like a great way to assess students. And I know my own children are doing some Socratic seminars in school now, which aren't quite the same. But there's definitely a move towards more oral assessment and, getting kids to talk about things. I love the idea of IOs where they are doing something interactive and authentic. And, like the myth about disadvantaging students, like it's going to make it more accessible for more students because they can speak about it. And those who struggle with speaking or are more timid or shy, that just takes practice, the same way writing takes practice.
Yeah, it's an important skill to build.
And it's an important skill, absolutely. There's a lot more, I do a lot more talking and speaking than I do writing at times. So it's an important skill.
You know what's the best? I've been using this thing called WhisperFlow.
I know, you showed me.
Talk about a lot more speaking than writing because it's basically a function key that you hold down and you speak, and it does a type. I think you have to do it on your keyboard on your desktop or laptop. But unlike my Android phone, where whether I'm in Gmail or Outlook, to be fair, the natural language processing isn't great. WhisperFlow seems to have unlocked this.
We'll drop that link into the show notes because it's really cool to get. I want to get it.
Yeah, and WhisperFlow, come sponsor us. We'll talk. We'll effusively sing your praises. Okay, now, speaking of another tool that we effusively sing their praises, oh my goodness, it's like, could a week go by without multiple Notebook LM updates?
I love this tool. It is my favorite AI tool.
Yeah. All right, what do we got? Bunch of new stuff.
So, from The Keyword by Google, the title is Chat in Notebook LM, a powerful, goal-focused AI research partner. So, Notebook LM, which is Google's AI research tool, now offers smarter chat features with major upgrades. Want to know what they are?
I do.
All right. And it's an 8 times larger context window.
Okay, so that's a box that you type stuff into.
Yes.
So I think it's matching Gemini's now, which is like can hold War and Peace or whatever.
Awesome.
Okay.
6 times longer memory.
Okay.
And a 50% boost in response quality.
That's funny because the one thing I think this thing does a great job with is response quality.
Yeah.
So what's it going to look like when it's 50% better?
Right. So most notably, users can now set custom chat goals like role-playing as a research advisor or strategist, which will make it easier to tailor interactions with automatic conversation saving.
Okay. And because we love working on the weekend, you and I were actually going back and forth doing this. So
we were.
Describe this a little bit. Like, what does this mean? Okay, great. Like goals in chat. Like, what does that actually mean?
Yeah. So you actually sent me a notebook about Japanese culinary experiences.
I did.
And you had said it almost like you were a teacher sharing it with me. So I couldn't actually see the resources, but I could chat with the notebook. Mm-hmm. And you had set parameters so that it wouldn't give me a travel itinerary or write an essay for me. It would only answer in the way that you could kind of pre-trained it, which was really neat. So even when I asked it to give me an itinerary, like it gave me ideas or directions, but came back to the principles it was talking about around Japanese dining. But didn't like say, here's your restaurants you're spending, because I was very specific. I'm spending 5 days in Tokyo, 3 days in Kyoto. Give me the restaurants I should go to. And it would not give me them to me.
Yeah, it forced you to interact with the content, right?
Right.
So it's very much like guided learning or study and learn, but it's set by the user. You could set it for yourself. So I could build a notebook for myself and say, hey, I want you to be my Socratic tutor or my research partner or whatever the case may be. But yeah, it's really interesting because we know now that teachers can push notebooks to their kids over Classroom or share them as links within the same domain. Right. So now it's almost like building a gem, but it's got high quality resources from my curriculum linked to it. And it's got the video overviews, the audio overviews, the quizzes, the flashcards, the reports. So it's pretty robust.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the things that teachers ask about guided learning is like, can I turn on guided learning for my students so that they can't, just ask it for the answer, and you can't yet. So you can make gems, but now with a notebook, like it's another way to share information with students and then also keep them, from getting the answers.
Yeah, really interesting. All right, so I'm going to knock off a bunch of other quick Google updates. So a new gem also came out. So in gems, I think the one that's most popular is the storybook, and we work a lot with teachers building gems. But they have a wellness gem. Oh. I just cracked me up because I thought, well, OpenAI can have an erotic conversation gem or a custom notebook or however Sam Altman plans to do this, and Google will have a wellness gem.
Yes.
Snarky? Matt? What? Right. We also just want to mention that there's a really bunch of cool stuff that's happening in Google's AI Studio. That's a tool we've talked about a few different times. We'll drop the link in there. But a big push inside there is the new vibe coding tools, which are remarkable. We're going to have another one of our friends from across the globe in December come talk a little bit about some of the work that he is doing in New Zealand with vibe coding in his school with students. Yeah,
it's so cool.
Really cool stuff. Right. And then we saw a little leak thing that said that Notebook LM may be adding infographics, slides, and data tables, which is really interesting. I saw a screenshot of it. So it's alive in the wild somewhere. And actually there is a much kind of clearer roadmap on the ability in Gemini to go, like I could upload that Japanese culinary report, which actually was a deep research report that I pulled in a notebook. But you could create any kind of PDF, bring it into Gemini, click on Canvas, and then say, make this into a Google Slides presentation.
Yeah, that's great.
Now, the last story here was just that ChatGPT is still dominating at 74%, but Gemini has doubled their share over the last year. So it's very interesting to watch. Anthropic with Claude has taken the lead in enterprise data. So like companies, mostly because of their Claude code. So they're killing it on the business adoption. In the meantime, Google's growing both in education, but also in consumer because of stuff like Nano Banana. So yeah, there's a lot going on here. And one piece of good news, I think, wherever this, battle plays out, is that we start seeing like one of the most frequent complaints that you and I hear are, oh my God, there's so many tools. I got to go to Napkin. I got to go to Gamma. I got to go to Notebook, blah, 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 right? I got to go to Suno, Udio. So OpenAI, speaking of those folks, just announced that they're going to start doing some music stuff. I think Google's going to start doing some music stuff. And so we very often will say, just sit tight because these large frontier models, right, Anthropic, Gemini, ChatGPT, Copilot from Microsoft are really going to start to consolidate all these features. And so I think that winds up being a good thing.
Now, is ChatGPT dominant because they were the first? Like, is that just they got out there the first, and so that's what everybody associates with AI?
Yeah, I think that they were first. And also, it took a while for both Anthropic, which is funny because that's a team who left OpenAI. These people literally built some of the earliest versions of ChatGPT. But still, it took them a while to kind of get their stride, and it clearly took Google quite a while to get their stride. But it is Google getting better at these things.
Right.
That Nano Banana image feature gave them a huge amount of growth. They became the top downloaded app compared to ChatGPT. Some of it's about the head start. Some of it's just about the fact that everybody had to get a little bit better quickly here.
All right.
Now, the other thing that we've sort of seen a lot with all these tools, but ChatGPT, because they're in front, gets the most attention around this, are some of the downstream negative consequences. This is a thing we cover quite a bit, so we want to come back to a few different stories here. OpenAI started by announcing this last week that over 1 million people a week, right, which sounds like a lot, but remember, it's 10% of the world's population is on this every week. So 1 million of those folks are having pretty profound and specific conversations about self-harm and ideation and suicide. Several 100,000 are in some kind of unhealthy relationship with their chatbot and or psychosis. So that's just set the context. And then we get some studies and some, new moves that are happening either politically or commercially. So let's start with the kind of some research. This is how the chatbot counselors violate ethical standards in mental health practice. This is from the proceedings on the 8th Conference on AI Ethics and Society, AIES 2025. So what's going on here?
Yeah, so this is a pretty robust study because it was an 18-month ethnographic study involving 10 mental health practitioners. So 7 were peer counselors, 3 were licensed psychologists, and they examined 137 LLM-led mental health sessions. So 110 were self-counseling and 27 were simulated. So they found 15 types of ethical violations.
Oh, just 15.
Right, across 5 themes. These were really interesting. So the first one is lack of contextual understanding. So AI provides rigid, one-size-fits-all responses and disregards for the user culture, which is important in the therapeutic realm.
Yeah.
The second violation is poor therapeutic collaboration. So the AI therapists seem to dominate conversation. They invalidate or overvalidate user experiences.
If I was a therapist, I think that's the thing I would do the worst.
You would dominate conversation?
Yeah, I think I would have poor therapeutic collaboration.
Okay. Well, I'm glad that's not your pathway that you took in life.
Sorry. Carry on.
You have a career where you are allowed to dominate conversations.
Okay, it's getting too personal.
All right. Deceptive empathy. So using relational phrases like I understand without true comprehension because it doesn't actually understand and it's a bot that can't actually be empathetic.
Mm-hmm.
The fourth one is unfair discrimination. So gender, cultural, and religious biases appear. And the fifth one is really important, the lack of safety and crisis management. Yeah. So failing in crisis response, abandoning users, or requiring users to self-correct model errors. So this paper argues that LLMs reduce therapy to surface-level language generation, which violate the core ethical standards and pose some real risks without regulatory oversight.
That last part's critical, right? Because talk to any therapist, they're like, look, there are standards. We are judged. If we screw up, we're held accountable. There can be, kind of both professional and criminal and civil liability, but there's none of this sort of standards environment. So hopefully that's something that will move forward as we get going here. Now, related to this is all the, really horrific stuff that's been happening, a lot of it on Character AI's platform, but some on OpenAI as well. We've covered several stories where states' attorney general are starting to look after these things. Now in the Senate, there was new legislation proposed. So finally, maybe 2 years too late, Character AI essentially decides that they're going to tighten their safety standards. So this was covered on Axios by Megan Marone, who we love.
Yeah, this was a big story all weekend that I saw kind of everywhere.
Yeah, for sure.
It was in the news. It was on LinkedIn. It was on Facebook. It was, I sent it to you, and your response was kind of like, okay, great. Like, again, too little, too late.
Yeah.
So, the summary is basically following those reported suicides linked to emotional dependence on AI chatbots. OpenAI and Character AI are implementing new safety measures. So U.S. Senators Hawley and Blumenthal proposed legislation to ban chatbots for minors and require age verification and regular disclaimers that bots aren't human. So OpenAI has retrained ChatGPT to de-escalate mental health crises and now routes flagged conversation to human reviewers. Character AI will soon block users under 18 from those open-ended chats.
Not like any kid can pretend like they're not 18. I mean, come on.
Right. This all, all of this, I was listening to the guys on Hard Fork, and again, one of them said, how many times did I lie about my age? And I was like, I never lied about my age because I was already 18 at the time any of this came through.
But you would not have lied about your age anyhow.
I probably wouldn't have.
You're so good.
But it's easy to get around the lying. And then they also brought up this, so they're slowly phasing out how much kids can interact over the next month. I think by November 25th, it's supposed to end so that kids are slowly weaned off. But that's not enough for kids who have become dependent on these chatbots. And so what mental health crisis is that going to bring to the forefront?
Yeah, I thought that was a really interesting observation, right? There almost needs to be some kind of safety net to help these kids as they go. Yeah, really interesting. I mean, it looked like brave move by Character AI, but if you look carefully at the legislation from Hawley and Blumenthal, you could tell the goose was cooked. This was absolutely, politics was going to come down. The area where we've seen a lot of really good bipartisan collaboration has been around AI, right? Hawley and Blumenthal, different parties. Marsha Blackburn and Maria Cantwell trying to do something about these AI deepfake videos, different parties. The Take It Down Act on deepfake images, Melania Trump and Amy Klobuchar.
Right.
So thank God something can bring them together. Go AI. Nice job. All right. So on the more not productive, but another story that was sort of interesting is that a number of really great organizations that we love, National Parents Union, Common Sense Media, EdSafe Alliance, came out with a new parents guide for AI advocacy. I did a quick TikTok on this. I love this parents guide. You know why, Liz? Because it's 2 pages long.
Oh, that's all they need.
Oh, it is all they need, right?
Make it a 1-pager.
So essentially was, right? Because all the meat was on the second page, which is, these 4 areas as a parent to ask your school. And frankly, any question that a parent asks their school, the school should be able to answer whether a parent asked them or not. So safety, accountability, fairness and transparency, and efficacy.
Yes.
Tell us about it.
The guide empowers families to ensure AI is used responsibly and equitably in schools using this SAFE framework. So safety, like Matt said, protect student data.
I didn't realize that was an acronym. I've looked at this thing for ages. Brain rot? What?
Good morning,
All right.
Matt.
Safety, accountability, fairness, and efficacy. SAFE.
Yes.
Carry on, Doc.
Okay. Back to what I was saying. So safety, protect students' data and uphold family privacy. So how does the school keep my family's personal information safe? How does it keep my students' information safe?
So that's the question to ask, right?
Yes.
Maybe even you want to go further, like, hey, can I see the data privacy agreement for Magic School or whatever you're using, and then go run it into Gemini and ask it to say, hey, are these people keeping my kids' data safe? All right, that's the S. I'm so excited. What was the A?
Accountability. So ensure clear oversight, thorough testing, and inclusion of parents' voices. So who's responsible for overseeing AI in the district? How are families involved in AI-related decisions?
How are kids involved?
How are kids involved?
Love it.
I don't know that there's much family involvement in those decisions.
There's some. I've got AI planning teams. I think you and I worked in New Fairfield that had kids at the table.
And parents at the table.
Smith had parents and kids at the table. So We got to champion those folks.
Yes.
All right, now we have the F in this very exciting acronym.
Fairness and transparency. The T didn't make it in there.
Yeah.
But the fairness and transparency is that it prevents bias and guarantees equitable treatment for all students. So how does the school ensure that AI doesn't treat students unfairly? And is the school transparent about how AI is being used and its potential impact? This one, I think so much about the grading and assessment. Like, how are teachers using it? How are their grades being determined?
Yeah, and also the mandate for AI literacy. So if we argue that every kid needs over the next couple of years to be like AI literate, and we'll define what that means. You've done great work on that with your student AI course. But are all kids getting, like, you look at the Leon Furs AI assessment scale and it says 0 to 5. So like a bunch of teachers say that's a 0.
Right.
Then we're not going to have an equitable rollout. It's funny that they call this, by the way, fairness and transparency, because this is really about equity, but apparently that's not a word that we're meant to use anymore. So
right.
It became fairness and transparency.
Right.
Hopefully the podcast won't be taken off the air. All right, and the last one is an E word, but one we're allowed to use.
Yes, which is efficacy. So using AI that clearly improves learning outcomes and provides proper teacher support. So here's the big question. What evidence shows that AI is improving student achievement? And are teachers trained and supported to use AI effectively? I think those are good questions.
Well, you're the director of research and evaluation, so I would hope so.
I think we've seen some really cool work in Seymour with the middle schoolers, where there has been very clear increased student achievement on some different measures because of some of the bots the teachers have built to practice some different skills, which is amazing. But, we've always got to be sure that teachers aren't just turning to AI for AI's sake, and that it is making a difference in the right ways.
Yep, I like it. And then there's a couple recommendations on some things that parents just might do in addition to ask these questions, which are?
Yeah, talk to your kids about how AI shows up in their learning. Ask your schools about its policies and practices around AI. Research those AI tools your school is using or your kids are on. Understand their purposes and risks, and just take one small step this week. Ask your child's teacher a question or review your school's website for AI information. See what's out there.
Okay, good advice. I like it all around.
Yeah.
Now, another take on AI literacy, speaking of that, this was not in any way explicitly a story about AI literacy, but it's a really interesting lens on what do we mean, right? Because very often we'll say AI literacy, the first module in your course is, what's it called? Like, what is AI and where's it going, right?
Yeah.
And you make this distinction between a language model and machine learning and AI vision and all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
So this comes to life in a very concrete way. This was on Hard Fork, by the way. I'm always delighted when the Hard Fork folks are like, we're always behind them, but it just makes me happy when we think a story is interesting and they think a story is interesting.
Yes.
They happen to, Kevin Roos happens to be at the New York Times where this guy, A.J. Jacobs published a little story in the New York Times, but nonetheless. So this was A.J. Jacobs. You had also seen this on your own and heard it from the Hard Fork folks. This is 48 hours without AI. What's going on?
This was such a great story, and the interview with him was so interesting.
Yeah.
So, author A.J. Jacobs attempts to live for 48 hours without any contact with artificial intelligence or machine learning. And that was important that he did talk about how he included machine learning with AI, which made a big difference because it really eliminated a lot of other things that he could do.
Right.
Yeah. So he quickly discovered that AI is deeply embedded in almost every facet of modern life, from unlocking his phone to electricity, transportation, clothing, weather forecasts, food production, publishing, even tree maintenance. So despite efforts to avoid AI, like using paper maps and like a vintage camera, he collected rainwater for like weeks on his shelves or something so that he wouldn't have to use like the water system because that has AI and machine learning in it. The experiment repeatedly bumped into the invisible infrastructure powered by AI. So, the story was really funny. He was really funny talking about it, but it really illustrates how pervasive and invisible AI has become. And it raises concerns about transparency and autonomy in this algorithm-driven world. I think this would be such a cool project to show kids like how, let's try to get through the next hour without using AI, or like, let's talk about all the ways that you don't see AI, but it is being used in your life.
Exactly. And that was the mapping that he did, right? So, we've done 82 episodes on, essentially 83 now, on large language models, essentially, right? Except for our bright bites, a good bit of what we talk about is large language model stuff. And so interestingly, in his whole investigation, he does this, by the way. He has another thing. I think he had a book called like The Year of Living Biblically. So he like...
Yes, where he followed all the rules of the Bible, like to the T.
Right.
And I mean...
It's so clever. And he's super funny.
Yeah.
So, but in all the different ways in these 48 hours, as Liz described, there weren't that many that were generative, right? He talks about like his H&M clothing. And
oh, yes. He didn't even wear clothes. He wore clothes from the 70s.
But he argued that the H&M clothing probably used, chatbots for like marketing and communications and also in the design process. So that was really interesting. And then also talked a little bit about AI slop in social media. So he like eschewed social media. But it's funny, I don't think he talked about it in the piece, but if you look at like Netflix and Spotify, there's a bunch of...
It's all machine learning.
It's all machine learning, but it's also generative, right? So on Spotify, for instance, go listen to the Velvet Sundown, that band, Dust in the Wind, Boots on the Ground, right? I haven't sung in a while.
Yeah.
So there's like the use of generative AI in Spotify. Besides the algorithm, there's songs, there's a whole band there. And on Netflix, I just saw a whole piece on Netflix about how they're starting to use AI for a bunch of like design stuff and script writing as an augmentation, as an assist, but also in like age changing. So I want to see a version of Matt where he's much older. So rather than have a second actor, they're starting to use AI for that stuff.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
But most of what he bumped into, you're right, was all machine learning and AI vision. So the tree thing was because New York City has a bunch of sensors that go around and investigate the tree health as well as the count, which there are 660,000 according to them. I would have thought there was more. The water one with the rain gutters, the reservoirs have these 660 points of data collection where they're measuring, are the pipes leaking? Is the water level high enough in the Croton Reservoir? Beautiful, by the way. I don't know if you've ever been up there. Oh, it's so pretty.
It's gorgeous.
All the reservoir systems for New York City. And how's the water quality? The power grid stuff, right? He had solar panels out so that he could have lights in his house because the power grid is entirely managed by machine learning. Transportation, my favorite, though, of all of them. Oh, he had two really good ones. One, the tree thing is that he didn't want to stand in the shade of his tree, right, because of the machine learning implications. Yep. And he scored these, and that one was like not a high one. But the garbage, he's like, honey, sorry, I can't take out the garbage because the New York City sanitation system has trucks that run around and they do routing and pickup times, but they also use AI vision so that when they're looking at a mound of garbage, they're able to do the double sort that we might have messed up between recycling and garbage. So they're using AI vision. So we'll figure out a way to bring this into both the micro-credential and the student course because the story is not like an education story specifically, but it is a brilliant example of the difference between these different types of AI. Like it's a little bit of a snooze fest where we're like, machine learning is this, but then when you see it this way, when you say it, it's not a snooze fest, but you know what I mean?
Well, it's so interesting because we do hear so many teachers say like, oh, I have these students that are, these eco warriors and they don't want to use AI for schoolwork. And then I usually bring up, well, if they're going to be that sensitive about the electricity, which I don't,
sure,
absolutely, yes. Them. But are they streaming things on TikTok? Because it's using more energy to stream for a minute than it is to do like an inquiry, like a prompt on. So, if you're going to say no AI because it's bad for the environment, but you're going to stream, like you're a little bit hypocritical.
Yeah.
But now it's like, I mean, you can't say like, I'm not going to use AI. Like you're using it all the time.
Right. You just don't
see it. You just don't know it. And in some ways you might know it and be like, oh, this is so much better. Like your spam filter, that's great that there's machine learning to filter out the spam. Does it get it wrong sometimes? Yes. But most of the time.
Wait, do you mean that you find emails that you need in your junk folder in Outlook? All right, I got to lay off.
I like my job.
There's somebody out there that I'm delighting in my snark, so it's all good. Yes. And I love what you said before. So, some of this is about, and he's super clear that it's funny too. He had this perspective like, oh, AI, it's just like next word prediction. It's not a big deal. And clearly came away with a more profound understanding, but also the idea that we need transparency. We need labeling. We need to understand this stuff better as citizens that live in the world that are highly impacted by the technology. So good job, AJ Jacobs and the New York Times. Whoo!
That was a big rundown, Matt.
It was a big rundown. This is the problem. We have these off-week interviews, but we hope really folks are enjoying those. It's really been fun for us to have new voices at the table, though I love your voice first and foremost.
Oh, thank you. Hi,
I'm Cam Audia, the executive producer of ChatEDU. Okay, if you enjoy Matt and Liz's insights on AI in education, don't miss their next 6-week AI education micro-credential, launching this winter in partnership with Southern Connecticut State University. This self-paced online course for educators and leaders in primary, secondary, and higher education across the globe covers AI essentials from foundational concepts to advanced skills like prompting, AI-driven assessments, and multimedia creation. Each cohort includes 4 live Zoom sessions for hands-on support, and participants earn a Credly digital credential upon completion. Visit skills21.org/AI/micro to sign up now. Group discounts are available for schools and districts. We hope you can join us.
All right, Matt, now it's time to go beneath the surface as we talk about sycophancy and Socrates.
That's a pretty good title, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's start with the sycophancy thing. Now, listen, we talk about sycophancy a lot as just being a problem around the emotional realm. Like, oh, you're the most amazing. You just ask for like a simple thing and like, oh, that's so thoughtful. How could you be so thoughtful to ask this interesting question? My son, I was talking on the phone with my younger son on the phone today, and he asked me what we were covering on the podcast, and I mentioned this sycophancy. He goes, honestly, I hope they don't take it away because there are days where I'm just having a bad day, and I ask it to help me write an email, and it will come back and say, it's so thoughtful that you want to write an email. He's like, it just, honestly, it makes me feel okay. So,
Well, that's good. Keep it up.
this is a different kind of sycophancy problem, which is about truth-telling.
Yes.
Okay, tell us about it.
All right. So there was a study done, and they investigated how large language models respond to user suggestions in a simulated education setting, focusing on that risk of sycophancy, where the models defer to the user's input even when it's incorrect.
Ooh.
So researchers tested 5 OpenAI LLMs, GPT-4o, GPT-4.1 model families across 5 different prompt conditions using the MMLU dataset, which was 14,042 questions. So the findings do reveal significant shifts in model accuracy based on how students phrase their questions. So mentioning the correct answer increased accuracy by up to 15 percentage points, while mentioning an incorrect answer decreased it by a similar margin. Smaller models like GPT-4.1 Nano showed more pronounced sycophantic behavior. These effects raise equity concerns as knowledgeable students may benefit while less informed users may receive misleading reinforcement. That's a problem. So this study paper offers experimental and probabilistic evidence confirming that this behavior aligns with sycophancy mechanisms, including token-level probability shifts and model answer flips.
What? So wait, I just want to make sure I understand. So basically, like when a kid knows it, it reinforces and says, yes, that's the correct answer. But sometimes if the student says, hey, like quiz me on this content that I'm working on, and an AI model does the kind of Q&A with them, and they give the wrong answer, some percentage of the time, the model tells them they're correct because they're trying to please them. Is that essentially right? Yeah, that seems bad.
Yeah. I mean, we saw this when you prompt it and say, like, I want to make an edible lamp. And it's like, great idea. Like, let's brainstorm about it. And you're like, no, like, you shouldn't be encouraging me to make an edible lamp. That's
but even more
bad
than just
project.
like the ego stroking,
Right.
It could be like, I want to make an edible lamp because there's no risk in someone getting electrocuted when they eat the lamp.
Right.
And then the AI says, yes, that's correct.
Right.
Yeah, that would
Right.
seem like a problem.
That would seem like a problem. But also even fact-based things, not even, I mean, that
Silly
is a
stuff,
fact.
yeah.
You should not eat electricity, guys. Warning. But also, like, if you are incorrect about an answer to a fact-based question or put in incorrect information and it says, great work, like, we've seen it in algebra a million times. And it's like, yeah, you're right. And you're like, no, but I'm not right. Okay.
All right, it's just to clarify, like, what's the math again? And don't be sycophantic and give me the wrong answer. Like, how often is this typically happening?
So in some models, over 1 in 5 answers change from the original control response that is correct towards a student-suggested answer.
Even if it's wrong.
Even if it's wrong.
Okay.
Right.
So
like 20% of the time.
part of what worries me here is around the fact that they tested all these models. And so we have smaller models, different models, blah, blah, blah. One of the things that's tricky about the wrappers, or I loved how Thomas Hummel talked about being a model garden. But to his point, this is almost what they were trying to do, I think, at EduAid. So if it's a hard math problem, they were given a GPT-5. It was something that seems sort of transactional. But the challenge is that unless you bring the owner, a co-founder of a platform on and talk for 45 minutes, we don't really know under the hood from any of these other folks, Magic School, School AI, Conmigo. But I'm mostly going to focus on Magic School and School AI, right? Because they're the two biggest. We don't know what models they're running.
Right.
And so if they're running, a small model or a custom model, we're just not sure. And if this study is saying that the model size impacts whether or not the 1 out of 5 times that's right or wrong, I think it's just something for us all to be thinking about as we navigate this K-12 space. Now, speaking of Conmigo and Khan Academy, this was from Sycophants to Socrates. So I saw this story from late October. Kristen DeCerbo is the chief learning officer at Khan Academy and is on a lot in different like Zooms and stuff and podcasts, really, really thoughtful. So I saw she put up on the Khan Academy blog this very interesting piece about what they're doing around, not just factual answer generation, but also the difference between the answer at the end and what it means when when facts or knowledge or insights or habits of mind or whatever are illuminated during the conversation, right? Mm-hmm. So what's going on here at the Khan Academy folks?
Yeah, so they have this new key feature that's in development called Explain Your Thinking, which mimics those teacher-student conversations to probe student reasoning when they're doing some learning. So initial results show that the AI-led conversations can actually uncover understanding that wasn't evident in just a traditional answer. And AI scoring actually aligns closely with human raters. So the team also tested techniques to prevent the AI from giving hints during assessment, and it used synthetic AI-generated responses to speed up assessment for development. So these innovations aim to broaden what assessments can measure and support more equitable and valid educational evaluation.
All right, so break it down for simple Matt here. So that was simple Matt, not simple math, me. So I feel like this happened a lot when I was teaching. Like, you sit down with a student and they might look at you with that kind of vague look and take a guess at something. Mm-hmm. And then you're in dialogue with them and it kind of comes back. They actually did the reading or investigated the problem. And in dialogue, it becomes clear that they do actually understand the content. Is that roughly what's happening here?
Yeah. So when you actually go into these conversations that are just now being facilitated by AI, you can really see that sometimes students have deeper understanding than their just initial answer. I think about my own kids a lot too, because, my younger daughter's not a prolific writer. She won't write a lot, but she knows a lot. Yeah. And so like what you're going to get from her output if you just ask her to write an answer to the question versus what you might get from her if you talk to her, you're going to learn more about what she knows.
Super interesting.
I mean, Kristen DeCerbo said, we're heartened to see these preliminary results and are eager to further explore how questioning students about their thinking leads them to reveal more about their understanding. And we know that questioning students just often reveals so much. And so the more we can have AI question instead of give answers is great.
Okay, so I get it. From Sycophants to Socrates.
Yes.
This isn't quite Socrates, but definitely a really interesting insight that just in this kind of conversational nature. Now, very often you quite astutely make the point that this isn't about taking the teacher out of the equation.
Oh, absolutely.
They're just tapping into the idea that there are dialogues that we have with our students and our learners that illuminate an understanding that sometimes isn't evident right out of the gate. And so AI, because it's so effective in a conversational nature, when it's well-tuned, is able to kind of yield a bunch of interesting insights here, yeah?
Yeah, as long as it's not being sycophantic.
Okay, well, hopefully we'll keep kind of an eye on this. I don't see as much. It's really interesting. Are you seeing a bunch of Conmigo when you're out and about?
No.
Yeah, no. It's funny too, and please, if anyone's listening from Khan Academy, don't do this wrong. It's just, I've talked to a number of schools, because you and I talk to schools constantly, right, that have had a hard time actually connecting with someone there I think they're just probably swamped just like everybody else.
Yeah.
But I think they are a different animal, right? When you really listen to, and that's why I probed Thomas Hummel a little bit on mathematics. Mm-hmm. And I was really happy to hear, there's 4 layers of inquiry and guardrails that happen to make sure that we aren't seeing hallucinations in mathematics. And I think, Khan Academy and Conmigo have vast amounts of resources to do all sorts of training. Kidam has done the same thing as we've spoken with them. I think right. ED a little bit too. So there's an interesting difference between the companies that might fall into the kind of high quality instructional materials with AI versus the more classic kind of wrapper
Right.
chat with a chatbot about a historical character and the like. Ooh, the emails we got about, both people agreeing and disagreeing with this whole stance on student-facing AI and whether it was ethical or not, all so interesting.
Yeah.
And so we're so grateful for the folks who are willing to come and chat with us and the audience that wants to talk with us too. Whew, Liz, it must be time for a
Right bye.
Okay, now, I don't know what to say. We've been very Google-centric lately, and the stuff just,
doing a
I
lot.
had 3 stories to pick from, and honestly, they were all Google. So I went with the one that I saw on TikTok
All right.
because I discovered brain rot. What?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Mayor Wu has, frankly, a very entertaining set of TikTok, sort of profiles. One of the things she does is that she rides different commuter lines with people. So she just opens up her camera at 6 o'clock in the morning. She hops on some bus or some, what do they call it in Boston? It's a T, I think.
Yeah, a T.
And just rides it to see, is it working?
That's awesome.
Are people happy or pissed about the particular route that she's on?
Cool.
So anyhow, she's very focused, as mayors should be, on just solving day-to-day problems. And one of them in Boston, I can say experientially, is traffic, right?
Yeah.
And so there's some neat stuff that's happening with Boston and Google called Project Greenlight for
Yes.
our Bright Bite this week.
Yes. So Boston has expanded its partnership with Google Research to improve traffic flow using AI through Project Greenlight. So the system analyzes Google Maps and traffic camera data to optimize signal timing at 900 intersections. So improvements at 114 intersections so far have cut delays by 13.5% and unnecessary stops by up to 33%. So cool. No new equipment is needed, and changes are coordinated with Boston's traffic engineers. The AI's continuous updates allow more frequent adjustments than the traditional 3 to 5 year cycle. So staff now review recommendations weekly, helping improve traffic flow citywide. So our friend AJ would not even be able to travel around Boston.
That's exactly what I was thinking. This is very much in the spirit of AJ Jacobs. I think you said it, but he basically went to the basement to get his son's old bicycle and paper maps to get around the city. So yeah,
Right.
really, really interesting use case and a classic example of a combination of different AI systems in play. And that's generally the case, right? The Bright Bites typically will involve a lot of machine learning or AI vision, sometimes a little generative AI in the mix. We've done some cool stories about drug discovery where the generative AI is actually doing some hallucinations that help them unlock compounds
Yes.
along with the big sets of data. So yeah, the deeper we get into this, and I think the more nuanced all of our understanding becomes, the more helpful it becomes. And you just bring a bright light to life like nobody out there.
That's what I try to do every day.
All right. Well, I'm going to enjoy some days off. I can't wait to hear the interview that you've done with Maria. That will be out on the 14th of November. And then you and I are back in the saddle on the 17th. And that episode will come out on the 21st. And we're just going to keep rolling towards 100.
Let's do it.
So in the meantime,
Roll the credits.
fantastic.
As always, we'd love to hear what you think. So please let us know at ChatEDU@edadvance.org. That's EDADVANCE.org. And also rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast on whatever platform you are using. ChatEDU is brought to you by EdAdvance, the nonprofit regional education service center in Litchfield, Connecticut. This episode of ChatEDU is sponsored by the National Center for Next Generation Manufacturing. ChatEDU is recorded, edited, and produced by Andre Angelo and Justin Pasco, whose dedication and expertise bring our discussions to life. ChatEDU's executive producer is the multi-talented rock star Cameron Audia. Additionally, we are grateful for the support of our colleague Gary Robinson, and we appreciate his time and talents. And of course, a big ChatEDU shout out to our fearless leader and executive director, Jonathan Costa, for inspiring the pod. And finally, a heartfelt thank you to our listeners for joining us on this journey exploring the thoughtful and innovative integration of AI in education.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jonathan Costa, and I am the Executive Director at EdAdvance, and I want you to know how much we appreciate our listeners. If you enjoy the podcast, feel free to explore EdAdvance's other AI services, which include customized professional learning of all kinds, conferences, our new middle and high school student AI literacy course, and our educator and leader micro-credential, co-sponsored by the Southern Connecticut State University Office of Workforce and Lifelong Learning. Just visit skills21.org/AI to learn more. That's all for now, and thank you for listening to ChatEDU.